Hari Govinda Gopalam Hari Vasudeva Balam Bhajananda Dulalam Jaya Jaya Deva Hari Hari Dinamani Manda Rāmānanda He Hari Dinamani Manda Rāmānanda Bhava Andanam Bhava Andanam Munija Namanasa Hamsam Jaya Jaya Deva Hari Radhe Krishna Hari Govinda Gopalam Hari Vasudeva Balam Bhajananda Dula.
Krishna and all of his entourage in Krishna Leela, they all have, because all of Krishna's companions, associates, they are part of his eternal divine play, his eternal Leela. And so they all have a place in Mahaprabhu's Leela also. And so Rāmānanda Rāy is actually Vishakta Sakti in Krishna Leela, one of the principal gopis. So they actually have this eternal relationship. But they met within Mahaprabhu's Leela, divine pastimes. They met at this time, shortly after Mahaprabhu had taken up the renounced order, traveling in South India. And we don't have so much time right now, but it's a very, to really go into this subject properly, you need at least an hour. This scripture, Chaitanya Charitamrita, gives a very beautiful description of their meeting. In every sense. So this is chapter 8 of the Madhya Leela, the middle section of the scripture, Chaitanya Charitamrita. Some of you, of course, have read that. And that chapter is very significant for us because all theistic thought, all religious theistic thought, is covered in that conversation in a very systematic way. Within the plane of theism, everything is represented in a step-by-step gradual progression. It's an extraordinary conversation. And it starts out, the whole setting is also very wonderful. Mahaprabhu, he's wandering in his travels, and he stops to bathe one day at it's called the Godavari River in South India. It was considered one of the sacred rivers in India. And Mahaprabhu stops to bathe there. And at that time, Rāmānanda Rāy, he's there, right, as part of his government duties. And he happens to come to that river while Mahaprabhu's bathing there. And Rāmānanda Rāy, he's also coming for a bath. Bathing is considered like a sacred ritual in the Vedic culture. You don't actually bathe with naked in the proper practice, because it's considered water is sacred. And so it's a whole thing, chanting mantras, certain time of day, wearing cloth. And, we don't really follow that so much. It's all, a little above us. Fortunately, we've been given entrance into a more relaxed way of practice, more heart-based. But anyway, Mahaprabhu, he would follow all these practices. Rāmānanda Rāy, because he has this high government position, he's effectively like a king. That type of wealth, that type of power. And he arrives with this large entourage. He's being carried on this palanquin, Rāmānanda Rāy. And when they meet, and it's interesting because we were mentioning the other day, right, that Mahaprabhu, as a sannyasi, it was expected for him to keep a distance from materialistic persons of great wealth and surrounded by so much sensual pleasure and things like that. So Mahaprabhu generally would avoid persons like Rāmānanda Rāy. For that reason, he refused to meet the king, right, repeatedly, until finally he was arraigned. But in the case of Rāmānanda Rāy, Mahaprabhu like completely overlooked all these social conventions. And when they met each other, they immediately felt their eternal relationship, and there was this very ecstatic moment between them. And they both kind of like just forgot themselves, and they went towards each other and embraced one another. And just like instant connection. And it was quite astonishing actually for all the onlookers, because they're like, why is this sannyasi like running to embrace, he's like a highly positioned great person, but he's very involved in material affairs, and normally a sannyasi would stay away from something like that. And they're like, why is our master like running to embrace a sannyasi also? Like they were so puzzled. And these two, they just completely forgot their surroundings for a moment. They embraced in ecstasy and joy. And then they kind of come to their senses and step away. And they're immediately recognizing each other as recognizing this heart connection. And Rāmānanda says, oh, I would really like to have some discussion with you on higher topics. And Mahaprabhu tells them, let's plan for, I think they plan for the next evening, the next day. And then they come, and in the morning, because he's like literally got like 100 people or something in his entourage. So Mahaprabhu say, let's meet more privately. And so they come the next day quietly. Maybe they each have like one attendant with them, and they have this discussion. And one thing that's very interesting is that normally Mahaprabhu, he's in the position of the instructor, and there are a few cases in Chaitanya Charitamrita when we hear of him giving instruction to one of his followers. Like in the case of Sanatan, as we mentioned yesterday, for 2 months he's daily giving him instruction. This is all recorded in Chaitanya Charitamrita. In the case of Rupa Goswami, is it 2 weeks? 2 weeks, I think, he's giving him instruction. But in this case of Rāmānanda Rāy, Mahaprabhu puts him in the position of the instructor. And he tells Rāmānanda, I want to hear from you. And there's this, one of the things that's very beautiful in Chaitanya Charitamrita is you see how beautiful like real Vaishnava dealings are, like how much respect and love is expressed, and because they're both like deferring to the other one. And Mahaprabhu is saying like, Mahaprabhu, he says, I'm a Mayavadi sannyasi, means like I'm an impersonalist. I have a very impersonal conception of the absolute. You please enlighten me. And I want to hear from you. I can tell you're a great Vaishnava, a great saint. And Rāmānanda is telling him, I'm just a materialist. I'm absorbed in worldly affairs. You please purify me. And they go back and forth like this. But then they have this discussion where Mahaprabhu is asking him the questions and Rāmānanda is answering. And at the beginning of this chapter, the author, Kaviraj Goswami, has a very beautiful verse kind of like summarizing this whole discussion. It's very, very beautiful analogy it's given where Rāmānanda Rāy is compared to a cloud of perfect conclusions about spiritual thought and devotion. So Rāmānanda Rāy is this cloud of spiritual thought, love, devotion. And Mahaprabhu is compared to the ocean upon which that cloud is raining. So it's a very beautiful analogy, because where does the cloud get its body from? The cloud gets its body from the evaporated water, right, coming up from the ocean. And then that cloud is again raining back into the ocean. And the verse also mentions that this rain is compared to jewels that are like enriching this ocean of perfect devotional conclusions. And so because the idea is like Rāmānanda Rāy repeats this also, like everything I know, like you're empowering me. Like he compares himself to like an instrument. I'm just a stringed instrument. I'm a veena and you're playing me, right? This is Rāmānanda's vision. And so then they had this very profound discussion. And it starts out with Mahaprabhu asking, oh, you please tell me, what is the highest goal of life? And tell me the means by which that can be achieved. And then what happens in this discussion is Rāmānanda Rāy, he starts from a very base level of spiritual thought. And Mahaprabhu, he rejects. But it's all very systematic. So Rāmānanda kind of like starts out with level 1, and then Mahaprabhu, which is the Varnashrama system. The Varnashrama system is a means of offering worship like in an organized way within the social structure. Right? And the idea is that this Varnashrama system, it's like a step up from it. In the Varnashrama system, it's kind of like there isn't like so much direct awareness of the presence of God and divinity, but it's like in a general sense about like living a good life and following your duty and trying to live in a selfless spirit. So it's kind of like vague spiritual thought, but it's a step up from just base materialism and selfishness. Right? So and also another important point here is that Mahaprabhu tells Rāmānanda Rāy, and please support your conclusion with some evidence from scripture. Like not just your own ideas, but give some support for what you're saying. And so Rāmānanda is also citing different verses from the scriptures to support his statements. So he starts out with this, the Varnashrama system, and Mahaprabhu responds by saying, Eho baya age kahar. This is external, go deeper. And not that it's completely rejected, but that I want to know what's something deeper, what's something more, right? And then Rāmānanda goes to the next level, which is Krishna Karmarpan. I don't know, I probably shouldn't go into it too much because we ran out of time. Which means to directly offer to the Lord. Well, I'll just keep it condensed because you don't have much time. But you want to say something?
I compared like the beginning of Uttadeshamrita to the last verse. Well, verse to the last verse is a conversation talking about very basic.
Yeah, you could say, yeah. Gradation. So anyhow, there's this back and forth, and Rāmānanda is presenting one conception. Mahaprabhu repeats a few times. It's like 4 or 5 times. Mahaprabhu tells him, "This is external. Tell me something deeper. Tell me something more." And then so finally, at a certain level of reaching the level of pure devotion and a mood of surrender, you can say, to keep it simple. Then Mahaprabhu says, Eho hoi age kahar. Okay, this is okay. I accept this. This is the starting point of pure devotional life. But age kahar, tell me more. You know. And then in a systematic way, Rāmānanda presents different levels of devotion to the Lord. So it's a very extraordinary discussion. And it was very dear to Srila Sridhar Maharaj. He loved to contemplate this. And Srila Sridhar Maharaj, he actually identified in his early years as a sannyasi in his guru's mission, he actually identified the exact place where that conversation had taken place. You know? And there was a temple that was established there. It was one of Saraswati Kapoor's enterprises or missions to identify all the places that Mahaprabhu had traveled to. He'd established what's called Padapit, like a set of footprints there, like to show Mahaprabhu came to this place. You know. So there's so much more. It's a very, very deep subject matter. And then at the end of this conversation, because of Rāmānanda's deep devotional heart, he can recognize who Mahaprabhu is, right? Mahaprabhu is like hiding in this form as a sannyasi, but he's actually Krishna enriched by the heart and the divine halo of Radha. And so Rāmānanda, at a certain point, he starts to have this vision. Like, who are you actually? You know, in the beginning I was seeing a sannyasi, but now I'm seeing this beautiful golden girl, and I'm seeing the form of Krishna, this dark blue cowherd boy. And Mahaprabhu initially is kind of like trying to evade him and saying, oh, I understand. You're one of those great souls who sees God's presence everywhere. So you're seeing Krishna everywhere. And then finally they agree. Like we want to spend the rest of our lives in each other's company. And Rāmānanda Rāy, he after that he requests permission from the king to retire early from his service. And then he returns to Puri and he stays in Puri for the rest of his days. And so then daily he would meet with Mahaprabhu and all of the other associates. So I'm really happy to see the taking care of this place.
Is this his boat?
I don't think it's exactly his birth. I'm not exactly sure.
It's somewhere he could have found.
At least where he lived at some time. Yeah, with his family. He had 4 brothers, and they were like a wealthy family in Orissa. And I think they had another residence more central in Puri too. But it's really nice to see they're taking care of this place. So it seems that we can go in there as well. The door's wide open.
Just on another note, one about it, Pranyaptis said in the talk that when Mahaprabhu, he assembles the devotees to give the parampara to Srila Rupa Goswami. And when he was passing on to Srila Rupa Goswami, he quietly whispered in Rupa Goswami's ear, I'm handing over the parampara, this is what I got from Rāmānanda.
Yeah. There are a few incidents actually. It's very beautiful to see. So as I said, right, this discussion is very significant. They go into very deep discussion of different levels of theism. And then what's very beautiful to see throughout the rest of Mahaprabhu's life, he would sometimes reference this discussion. And like if someone was praising him for his knowledge, he would say, everything I know, it came from Rāmānanda Rāy. There are a few cases where he says that. Everything I know, I learned from him. It's very beautiful to see how Mahaprabhu, he's always putting his devotees in a higher position than himself. Jai Shri Ramananda Rāy. So I think we can have a peek in there. It looks like it's open. And give some little donation also.
Music, yeah.
So,